In this video, let's go ahead and review Bootstrap a little bit more. So I'm got this cheat sheet here. I'm in Adobe Illustrator, and I want to just kind of go through some of these examples here. So Bootstrap is a 12-column grid. So fundamentally, you've got 12 of these column slots. Now, potentially, if you were making a data graph, you could put data in each one of these, right? So basically, you have 12 available columns. You could put one thing in each column, or you can group columns together to make larger, for example. So there's 12 individual. This next row here, this is a 4-column Bootstrap grid. So that means that your content would actually sit inside of each one of these groups here. So basically each column occupies 3 slots. So 3, 6, 9, 12. So to make a 4-column grid, each column needs to be 3 of the 12. Okay, so if you want 3 columns, what you want to do is then make them 4 columns each, right? So you're going to take 4 of the available 12 slots, so 4, 8, 12, to make 3 columns. And you can make a 2-column here. Okay, so that's 6 and 6, or 1 column is actually all 12. Now, what I want you to realize is that you can also mix and match and separate them. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about that. We'll come back to this here. You can have a 6 and a 4 with space in between. So now, how do we separate them? So the maximum you can have is 12 column slots. So if you actually do a 5 and an 8, that's 13. The 5 would be on top, the 8 would roll down below, okay, into a new row. So you can align your columns, okay, center, and it doesn't matter how it is that you do it, right? So if it's 2 columns or 4 columns, you can just say center them instead of aligning. Remember, in the web, we align in the top and the left here. So if we tell the columns to be center aligned, they're going to align, and it doesn't matter how wide they are. They all start in the middle. Now, you can also do around, space around, and space in between. So this one is space around here. So you're going to notice that on my sheet of paper here, there are 4 columns, but the space is equal around them. And let me just grab something where I can show you here. So this space here, if I take that, you're going to see that one is the same there, same there, same there, and same there. So it's still kind of center aligned, but what it is the space around it, including the sides, is all equal. That's very nice for alignment. Now, if you do between, what ends up happening is you're going to only split it out. So the column 1 here and column 4 are going to be aligned on the edge, and then you're going to split the difference between each one of them, just like so. Okay, so little column there. So that's space between. Space around is this particular group here. So that distributes them or center them. Okay, so now we know that we can have these columns, and these are all organized. We can mix and match them, and we can also tell them to align. Now you can also tell them to align right, okay, or align at the end. So technically, it's not align right and align left. It's technically align start, align center, and align end, okay, where the row ends. So what is a row here? So let me put that back. So move over. The columns are grouped inside of rows, okay? So I said earlier that you have 12 column slots. They are surrounded by a row, okay? The row is like an Excel chart. It wraps around it, right? So if I tell it to go to the row end, so I'm going to just grab these 2 columns here. Excuse me, looks like they're all grouped together. I'm just going to ungroup some of these here. There we go. If I tell them to go to the end, at the end of the row, the start of the row or the center of the row. That's how that works, okay? So you can do the art. Now, here, technically, you have 12 slots, and then it starts a new row, right? So in theory, as you're coding these modules, your rows should wrap around your group. It is possible that you can end up with one row that has multiple sets of columns, right? So in this case here, we have 2 columns, and then we have 4 columns, and they're both in one row. Now, this is less recommended. It does work fine, because technically, if I take a look at this here, I could take column 1 here, and it will, in fact, fit. So if I grab both of these two, and this is why we want to wrap them in rows, because it's going to try to do this. If there is enough space for it to fit, this little tiny column is going, you know what? I can actually squeeze up in here. I'm going to push those guys over, and it's going to try to do that. So again, it is, what's it following? It's trying to see if there's 12 slots. So if this is a 4 and a 4, and this is a 3, that's only 11. It's going to try to squeeze in. This one would be 14 then, right? If these are threes here, it would be 11 plus 3 is 14. It doesn't fit, so it starts a new row. To prevent that from happening, there are different things that you can do, but in general, is best practices, for each one of the modules that you design, because that's what we're talking about, just design, is group them together inside of a row. That way you have full control. Now this is a one column layout here that occupies all 12. Okay, there is padding inside of the row that you can distribute. You can remove the padding and make it touch the edge. Okay, but that's how rows, okay, they wrap around a column. Now, the rows are inside of a container. And we talked a little bit about this, right? So a container is a box that wraps around multiple rows, and you can have multiple containers. So in your module, you may have a 2-column grid up here, and you wrap it with a row, and then you want to keep it separate from this 4-column grid, which is also wrapped in a row. But technically, all of these pieces up here at the top are part of the same module block, meaning, okay, so maybe it's a photo with body copy, and then you've got 4 clickable buttons here. Well, it's all one group, right? So this group up here can be contained within one container. So use your containers as a almost parent, to group all of your columns and rows into usable blocks. Now, the very last thing I want to talk about here is that the containers, you have 2 choices. Well, you've got more, but when we first start, let's just think of it as 2 choices. So the containers default to being centered. They have a maximum width depending on the device. So on a cell phone, the container is going to be full width. But once you get into your large and extra large sizes, then they have a maximum width. Okay, so they're going to extend, and at a certain point, they get to their maximum width. And what it's going to do is it's going to take all of it and then just automatically center itself on the screen. So that's the default container. You can actually set the container to be fluid, which means full screen. So that container can actually go full screen, but the problem you may end up with is some things don't really work well full screen. So for example, going full screen with an image or a banner image is a great idea. But, if you have 2 6-column ones, for example, let me just drill down into this particular here, you might end up with body copy that is really too wide to read. Like this starts getting really wide where you actually have to turn your head to actually read it, okay? So again here, containers can be centered or full screen. Containers wrap around rows, okay? So, and you can have multiple containers, as many as you want, grouping rows together that are blocks. And the rows, they wrap around columns to keep columns from trying to slip and blend into each other, which would break your design. And those columns, we know that we can align the center at the start, at the end. We can distribute the space in between them or around them. So this particular group here is around, and this group, the bottom row, excuse me, is between. Now the last thing we want to cover is mix and matching, okay? Because you can actually mix and match rows. So really quick here, so if I go into this particular group here, I'm going to go ahead and just take these and move that out of there. And you can actually take rows that are different sizes. And I'm just going to grab this one here, put that one back, get rid of this one. And let's grab one that is larger and place it right here, for example. Okay, now I'm borrowing some of these gray blocks here are the padding. Okay, so you can have a 3 and a 4 and a 3. That just equals to 10, right? You can actually have 3s on the sides, so that's a 3 and a 3 column. and then actually make a 6 column in the middle. So rows can actually be mixed and matched. So any combination. This is what makes Bootstrap really flexible and powerful, is that if you can leverage this approach, you can really kind of come up with most layout designs, right? You can actually do. And again, this entire row, this mix and match row, can be inside of a container that is fluid or full screen, or it's just centered. So you've got a lot of choices there. And this is mostly with just columns and containers. We still haven't talked about Flexbox, which allows you to rearrange the order and do a lot more. So hopefully you found this explanation of the Bootstrap Grid helpful, and we'll continue from here.